How's it going, everybody? So, I'm here, and this is good old YouTube review and a reenactment of an unboxing. So, I got this package in the mail about a month ago, maybe, give or take. And it's something I've been wanting for a little while. But this is very strange packaging for it. This is no joke, this is the exact same packaging that I got for it. So, I opened this up, and it was like this. These little squishy box, little air pads, and then this little box in front. This is the box itself. Now, the seals were not broken when I got them. I had to open up the test the knife out anyway before I did some recording, so. Pull that out. This out of the packaging. And boom, the Boker Subcom F. This is my review. Alright, well. Very interesting little knife. Let's go over the specs a little bit. This knife is 1/2 inch wide at its thickest. Alright, 4.5 inches from tip to base when open. Let's see. And then it is 1.5 inches wide. And finally, the blade itself is about 3 centimeters thick on that spine. Wow, I mean, thin little knife. Beefy here, not so much anywhere else. This knife is almost like TSA approved. Unless I'm mistaken by a little bit. It's like this is too wide for it. But if it was just thinner blade from that perspective, this would technically be an okay knife to carry. If I'm not mistaken. Double check that one if you want to, but I think, yeah, it would be. So that's what's kind of cool about this blade. It's a very small little mini blade, kind of like a similar to the Cold Steel Recon and a few other kind of knives like this. And I saw this blade for a long time and I was like, I'm not sure if I should buy this or not. It looks kind of cool. It's just a very, very interesting little design. I'm like, it's either a really good knife or a really bad one. I'm not really sure. I was like, especially for the price, and I'll get into that later on in this review. But finally I decided, you know what, I'll try it out. I'll be the guy to try it out and see what it's like. And worst case, I can return it and, you know, I'll get a refund. It'll be fine. So pick this little blade up. And I haven't really put it down that much since then. You know, I mean, unless I'm like sleeping or something. This has just been a great little knife to carry. Alright, it is a frame lock mechanism here. I mean, it'd be hard to do anything else. The blade like that. Oh, by the way, this is my Kershaw Clash to give you a size comparison. That is how different. You know, this is about your average size EDC blade. That's how small this blade is. Amazing, isn't it? Alright, it has about a polymer kind of handle. It sort of looks like G10 scaling, but it's definitely not. And then also has these little polymer thumb studs with like a elevated platform design on them. It's kind of hard to tell with the black there. That looks okay. Yeah, my lighting's a little effed up right now. I'll have to fix that. You can kind of see those little stair steps right there. Let's see. It is an AUS 8 combo edge blade. Alright, AUS 8 is a production steel made in, that one's Taiwan. Alright, it's known to be very similar to 440C and 8CR13 MOV. So it's one of those kind of mid-range steels you hear about sometimes. Next up, it has a lot of jimping, aesthetic jimping on the frame and the handle, and then functional jimping right here on this little spine edge. Let's get a good angle for that. It's really, really thin, hard to see. There you go, that's a better look. Very thin jimping here, but it is very good. I was very impressed actually by this jimping here. Alright, so going on to ergonomics of this blade. Bit thin, so at some points it's going to kind of have a little sharp edge to it. You know, on the frame, it's not very well rounded, but it's really not that big a deal for me. I mean, if you were to really apply some pressure to this, it's going to sting a little bit, but a blade like this, you're really not going to need to do that. This is not one of those extreme knives that you're going to want to hold too steady. It's just not going to work for that. And I would be in very poor straits if I had to use a knife for such situations. But yeah, we'll get into that later. Yeah, this jumping doesn't really do much here, and it is kind of a thin blade, but it's not too uncomfortable. It's pretty easy to get used to. Just a very light little grab there is fine if you want to do a little grip, or slight saber grip here. And then nice angling on the jumping. The one thing I would like is if it had some aggressive jumping, like on the blade right here on this little area where the lanyard hole is. That would be much better if they could put that kind of jumping on the top here, right there. That would feel really nice to me. And smooth these out a little bit, because these don't do anything. The one thing you could probably use those spines for like that is like with a fire starter. If you had to, say, take one of these, you didn't have that little thing, you could just strike across maybe. I haven't tried it, don't quote me on that one. That's about the only reason you might use that, is for some little resistance to shave off some of the little stuff for the magnesium fire starter. That's about it. These really don't do anything. They're too smooth to really bite in. I guess they're just really kind of aesthetic. I don't find a good use for them. The choil's nice and deep here, so if you did need to do some like food prep cutting, this would actually work pretty well on this side, although you might want a fine edge for that one, because I don't often, although, yeah, if you wanted this to be a steak knife, I guess you could do that too, if you really were desperate for a steak knife. Can't imagine why, but yeah, whatever. What else do I have on here? I mean, yeah, the frame's very good, nice and sturdy. This is a good knife to put in a pocket. I've beat this blade up a little bit, or put it through things, you probably shouldn't, just, how I carry it and stuff. And it's holding up great. It's a nice, sturdy construction, this thin little design. Pocket clip is wonderful. Bit hard to get some of the thicker fabrics, like in my back pockets sometimes, but that's about the only real gripe on that. Front pocket's fine, there's a little bit thinner, and it's really not that big a deal. I'm making more of a mountain out of this molehill than it really should be. Very low profile, hard to see in this all black design and my angling here. But yeah, and this little dip works just perfect for keeping that in place, and then pretty easy to draw out of the pocket too. You don't really have to worry about it sticking to your clothing. So good job there. Alright, performance of this blade. AUS 8, very good edge retention. For these mid-range, more cheaper, more economical blades, it's probably one of my favorite options, the AUS 8 and AUS 8A. It didn't take too long to sharpen this thing back up after I cut through a couple branches on some trees in my yard. Really just to see what this blade could do. And I was like, I just kind of did that really more because I wanted to than really having to. It still held an edge, it still cut through boxes and things like that. It was still fine. I just was like, yeah, I like to keep my edges nice and fine. I don't want to beat them up too bad. Or when I do beat them up, I like to make sure they're well maintained afterwards. And sharper than I expected. You could put a razor edge on this if you really wanted to. You won't have to for the task you would use this for. Not really. The edge, factory edge did fine, but yeah, if you want to do that, go for it. It can hold that, and it'll hold it for a long time. And the serrations on it, now most people, I think a lot of knife users, don't seem to like serrations that much. I do find some uses for it, such as cordage cutting and cloth cutting, things like that. It can actually be a nice thing, or a good way to get like a quick incision before you use the fine edge. That can be useful. I attempted to use it as a saw blade in some branches. This is just too thin a blade for it. It's not that the serration designs were bad. They were actually really good for cutting. It's just not enough serration. If it was a fully serrated blade, it'd be a little better for, woodsman work like that, but, it is what it is. It's just serrations for those, EDC tasks you need. And, the times when a serration edge does come in handy. and that is where they cut really well. Alright, so function. What is the function of this blade? Now, I have heard that some people carry this as a backup defensive blade, you know, the get off me blade kind of thing. Someone's on top of you, literally on top of you, you pull out a small blade to stab or cut to get them off of you. This is not that kind of blade. It isn't. It looks like it in a lot of ways, but it doesn't work, and I'll tell you why, because getting this out of your pocket and then flipping that open, the very slow thumb studs, and getting into even a saber grip or even just an ice pick grip, hard to do. It takes just too long. It would be better if you took a small, thin, fixed blade of some kind. You know, I think the Boker Gnome, actually, which is very similar in size and design to this, but it's a fixed blade, would be better for that task, I would say. There's also a lot of better knives for that. Yeah, this is not a tactical blade like that. What it is good for is this is a good backup blade, or a temporary blade. You know, so example of times when I don't want to bring out a 3.5 or 5-inch long fine edge blade. You know, if I'm around a lot of people who may be uncomfortable with me wielding a knife like that, even if it is responsible and perfect in the situation, this knife is good to bring out for that instead. So it is a good little crowd calmer. Just bring that out if you had to cut something in public, if you ever had to, and just use it for that task and then put it away. No one's really going to care that much because of how small this blade actually is. Another good reason, this is a good backup blade for if your main blade has to go in for maintenance. Now, let's say you've got a Chris Reeves Sebenza Paramilitary 2, or one of those big fancy blades that does everything. You might have to send that in for maintenance, or you find a defect or something. If you have this knife, you could use this for a lot of the same tasks to an extent, not as well, but it would get you by while you sent that in for maintenance to the company. And that is where that function comes in. Now the Subcom does come in several different kinds. There's a titanium, there's a slip joint one, there's a fine edge, combo edge, a couple different colors, so it is a collectible blade too. You can take this and buy several different kinds, make a little collection out of it. It would also make a cool little gift knife for people. So let's say you've got that girlfriend or boyfriend who isn't really that into knives, or isn't sure what a knife should be used for like this. They might think of these as weapons only or something. It's such a stout little knife. Alright, it's a cute, adorable little knife that they really wouldn't mind it, and you could buy out from them, like, here's just a little blade, in case you need to cut some paper or boxes or something. When you get packages and stuff. And they will suddenly find out how useful a tool a knife is. So if they're uncomfortable around knives, that's good for that. It's also good for if you have, kids you want to teach how to use knives, or on camping trips, things like that, or to carry. It's a thin knife, easy to hold, a bit wide for some of the younger kids, but they get a little older, around like 9 and 10 years old. Their fingers should be long enough to get this and use it okay. This could be a good kind of blade for them to learn how to use knives as a tool. So you can teach some responsible knife work with that. And the steel will hold up fine. The construction's really good, so you wouldn't have to worry about them if they did somehow misuse it while they were learning or getting through some of those trials of how to sharpen a blade and how to cut properly. It would be pretty safe because it's not going to be so sharp a blade like a 154 cm or a VG10 or one of those higher end blades that it's going to just slice through you necessarily. The razor edge it holds indefinitely. So you have some minimalism there. You can keep this blade, keep them a little bit rather dull in case of mistakes, things like that. And again, that way they can learn how to sharpen a blade and use one without worrying about damaging a real expensive blade. Although that does bring us to the price point. All right, this is the only downfall. This is a $27 blade. Yeah, $27. So for about $20, you can get an AUS 8A Cold Steel Recon Mini. That's very similar in design to that. And a slight upgrade, so that one I'm kind of looking at maybe getting as well. Although I think it's a little thicker than this one. You can also get, for $26, the same steel, a Ontario Knives Rat 1, and that's another like 3.5-inch, 4-inch blade, G10, and so price point, this is a lot more expensive by that. You can get a bigger blade, or in some cases the same size blade for cheaper than this knife. And I guess for that, because they outsource to Taiwan. Boker is a German company, and then the designer, they might have some say in that, having that logo on there. So I'm guessing that is probably why this knife is as expensive as it is versus the Cold Steel, the Ontario, and some other knives in similar prices that are larger or even use better steels. That could be the case. That's about all I can figure. But even so, I really haven't felt like I've wasted money on this knife. It holds up really well. It's a nice spare blade to keep, and that way I don't have to have a long serrated edge blade. I can keep a fine edge main EDC blade and then use that whenever the rare time I need a serrated blade is. And that's really where this knife comes in handy. So as a backup utility blade or small utility blade, when you need one of those smaller blades instead of the medium to large blades, this is a good option for that. And you can invest in having a good backup blade. So yeah, good choice. Other options out there, but still good, still nice, thin knife. A lot of different models in it, so you can collect several of these. You can get one for the whole family if you want it in different colors, pretty much. So if someone wants the titanium, you get the titanium. You want the all black, you can get the all black like this. Whichever you want to do. Alright, well, hope this has been a nice informative blade. I would suggest this blade to people if you want one. But again, open to other options as well. So, thank you for watching. Please click the like, subscribe, favorites. Alright, and I will see you next time.